We are living in a volatile political environment. You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorable.
Come on, man.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Come on, man. And if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It was a debate.
Dystopia. An imagined state or society in which there is great suffering or injustice. Many of the great writers warned about it. Many saw technological advances for what they are, which is another way to control the human population. In Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury wrote about television walls where you could not only watch government propaganda, but you could experience life without stepping outside. He wrote about mechanical dogs that essentially replaced law enforcement and became the watching eye for the government. Any of this sound familiar? Dystopia is bleak, and many would like to think its harsh, fictional reality can only exist within the realm of imagination. The people who think that way are the ignorant or the well-intentioned. Our technological advances have changed our social contract. Our technological advances have made us tolerant of things in the name of convenience. The imaginary dystopian future is here, and all you have to do is look up from your phone to realize it. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Deplorable Talk Show. You were here with Mr. Deplorable himself, Israel Perez. So, this is a show where I give you my unfiltered opinion on politics and culture. I know nothing about the things I choose to talk about, but this is America, where opinions are just like assholes. Everyone has one. I just choose to record mine and spread it on the internets. So, an execution took place in St. Louis, and people chose to watch an execution vicariously through their phones rather than doing something as simple as calling the cops. An NBC reporter got put on the Ukrainian Hit List because Ukraine did not like his reporting in Crimea. The hit list is a real thing, and we will talk about it and take a look at it. Ford submitted a patent for self-repoing cars. Yes, the dystopian future is looking so bright. And today's big lead will be about the lab leak theory. Time always tells, and some governmental agencies came out and said they believe it is possible that the couve leaked from the lab. And then we will end the show with a segment called What's the Pop in Pop Culture. Now, we will be talking about The Last of Us and how homophobic backlash is burdening the actors. So let's jump into the first story, huh? So can someone please explain to me what the hell is going on in St. Louis, Missouri? No, I know the crime is bad, but I didn't know it had gotten to Mad Max level. A homeless man was shot dead, execution style, in the street by another man. He did this while others watched and recorded the execution. Are Americans so used to experiencing life vicariously through a screen that a man that is in obvious danger is no longer in danger because you are now staring at it through a cell phone? Do your morals fade away because the cell phone offers a disconnect from the reality of the situation that is right in front of you? So, disclaimer. The video might be graphic to some. It's definitely shocking, that's for sure. So you have been warned that what I'm about to show you is a little graphic and disturbing. So let's take a look at it.
It sounded like a fucking... I said that was a gunshot.
So we heard a gunshot. And since... and this guy's obviously over here trying to either chamber his gun or unjam his gun. I'm thinking he's trying to unjam his gun after hearing that person say he just heard a gunshot, right? Oh, yeah. Still can't unjam it. Oh, okay. Still can't unjam it.
No, he just put a magazine in it and he's still trying to load it.
All right, now he can't chamber it. Boom.
Oh my God. He just fucking
Yeah,
killed
right?
him.
The fuck's that? The fuck is that? What's that? What the fuck did you think was going to happen? You know? No, I'm not saying the man should have went out there and put himself in harm's way, but call the fucking cops, man. Do something. No, he was having trouble unjamming his gun. That's enough time to go out there and tell the dude that you're calling the fucking cops and then step back inside. No, maybe that would have dissuaded him from shooting the guy on the street. You know, or be a fucking citizen, a model citizen, and go out there and tackle the fucking dude and get the gun away from him. That's asking too much. I know that. Calling the police is asking too much. Jesus, dude. The social contract is gone, huh? No, and if you're thinking there's no way this really happened, here's a headline to prove it. A man arrested in brazen sidewalk killing in St. Louis that was captured on video. A 23-year-old man has been charged with first-degree murder in connection with the brazen sidewalk killing of a man in St. Louis on Monday. The police said an episode that a witness captured on video that was widely shared on social media. Deshaun Thomas was arrested as he tried to enter a nearby library a few hours after he had fired one shot at the head of a man who was sitting on the curb in downtown St. Louis. Detective Marco Cristoliab of the St. Louis Police Department said in a brief interview on Tuesday night. The man who was fatally shot was identified in a probable cause statement as David Saldana. As the victim begged for his life, the statement said, Mr. Thomas loaded his firearm and shot him in the head. The shooting, which occurred around 10 a.m., shocked many people who saw the roughly 45-second video clip of the encounter online. And it continues to say, the police said that Mr. Thomas and the victim had been fighting that morning at a nearby Shell gas station before the shooting. Mr. Thomas ran off after the shooting, and the police caught up with him about 2:40 p.m. The authorities said the police also recovered a firearm and a shell casing. Mayor Teresa Jones of St. Louis said in a statement on Wednesday that she was appalled by the blatant act of violence committed in broad daylight against an unhoused man on Monday morning. Jesus fuck. This horrific incident, again, tragically speaks to the need to get illegal guns off the streets in a state flooded with them. Yeah, it's the illegal guns. That's the problem, right? Ms. Jones said, adding that the police department suspects this weapon seized in this incident is a ghost gun and are analyzing it to verify its status. Okay. It's not the mayor's leadership or the woke agenda she is pushing in St. Louis, which allows criminals to act this way and get away with shit. The problem is the ghost guns, right? That's the problem. You know how expensive it is to buy a 3D printer to make yourself a ghost gun? You know how extremely difficult it is to build your own gun? That's why gunsmithing is a trade. Yes, you can buy the parts and piece together your own gun, but if you don't have the skill to put it together, it's not going to work. No? And here's the other thing. You have to pass a background check to buy the lower receiver of a gun. Those gun kits that they sit there and say, oh, this is how they make ghost guns. They don't come with the lower receiver. You buy that separately and it comes attached with the serial number. That's why you have to pass a background check. Tashira Jones is doing what Democrats do best, blaming others for their mistakes and inability to solve problems they caused. In other news, an NBC reporter by the name of Carrie Simmons went to Crimea to report what it's like inside of Russian-occupied Crimea. While walking the streets of Crimea, Simmons asked Crimeans if they are Russian or Ukrainian, and all of them said Russian. And if Zelensky tries to invade, they will fight back.
Is Crimea Russian or Ukrainian? Crimea is Russian. Of course Russian. 73-year-old prax-Soviet tells me. Zelensky will not get Crimea back because we have our commander-in-chief, Putin.
Putin.
Every one of them told us that they are Russian and that if President Zelensky thinks Ukrainian forces can come here, they will fight them. President Zelensky has said that the Ukraine war started here and it will end here. But no one was able to tell us how it will end and how much more blood will be spilt.
Well, there goes the propaganda that Crimea is an occupied state, huh? So if Zelensky tries to take back Crimea like he says he wants to, who's the villain now? That's the question, huh? So, Ukraine is not happy about this reporter because it hurts their cause, obviously. They are upset to the point that they put the reporter from NBC on their criminal list, or others may call it the Ukrainian Hit List. NBC News journalist Carrie Simmons recently went to Crimea and reported that most Crimeans are pro-Russia. Now Ukraine has put him on its hit list website for reporting this fact. What does the U.S. government think about Ukraine adding an NBC journalist to its hit list? And if we look at this, this is a real website. And we'll be looking at it, but obviously you can see there's his photo. They have his name over there, Carrie Simmons. They have his date of birth. That's what it looks like, 22/02/1972. They have his place of residence, which is London. No. But if we go and look at this website to kind of verify that this is a real website, as we can see here, it is a non-governmental center for research of signs of crimes against the national security of Ukraine, peace, humanity, and the international law information for law enforcement authorities and special services. About pro-Russian terrorists, separatists, mercenaries, war criminals, and murderers. And as we can see here, yeah, you guys can see it up here, right there. It says criminal. And so that's what I'm taking this thing right here is. Right here, the one that's highlighted yellow means criminal, right? And they've updated their website since the last time I looked at this when I was getting it ready for this show, because these people weren't here. And the people that were here had this weird writing across their face, and I'll pull it up, and it's not the same one. It's just we're going to use the Wayback Machine, and it only takes a certain photo or screenshot at a certain time, and they took the screenshot when I wasn't looking, when it wasn't the day I was looking at. But anyways, as you can see, there's people with handcuffs here. But and like I said, these are all new people. But if we go to the time machine, all right, these were the people that were on there when I was looking at it. Now, it wasn't just their pictures. All these people right here, all these people had this written across their faced. But had this written across their face. Every single one of these people had this written across their face. Now, if we go to look what this means, we go to translator. It means liquidated. And if we just go back and kind of look at it, you see, I can just show you that I didn't, type it out wrong. Go here, same. It means liquidated. Okay, so what does liquidated mean? Definition, right? Now, we're not going to read the first one because it's a different definition. We're going to go to the informal one. It means to eliminate, typically by violent means, kill. So, liquidate. I would think that meant killed. No, not captured, killed. Because I think they would have another word there for captured, right? Not liquidated. But hey. So maybe that is a hit list and they're passing it off as a criminal list, right? Who knows? I just say it's very weird. And the fact that they put an NBC journalist on that list raises questions. And I bet you the U.S. was like, what the fuck are you doing? Take him off. You're bringing more attention to something that we already don't like. I bet you the U.S. doesn't like that. But whatever. So let's get into the last story before the big lead. So with new technological advancements means new ways for companies to fuck us. With smartphones came apps, and with apps came microtransactions. And with microtransactions came monthly subscription fees for apps with microtransactions. And Ford is looking to continue that method with the ever-improving smart car. Ford tries to patent a dystopian future where self-driving cars repo themselves. Car companies often talk about autonomous vehicles as an avenue towards increased freedom, enabling more people to access roadways and giving drivers back their time and attention. But at least one auto giant is considering alternative and darker uses of still elusive self-driving technology. Ford has filed a patent for theoretical tech that would, among other things, allow its vehicles to repossess themselves if a driver falls behind on car payments. In Ford's version of the future, delinquent customers' cars could drive themselves back to a dealership, or to an impound lot, or even a scrapyard, if the owner fails to pay up in time. Unfortunately, this is not a joke. The U.S. Patent Office published the company's application last Thursday, February, about 1.5 years after Ford first filed it. The patent, titled Systems and Methods to Repossess a Vehicle, hasn't been officially granted yet, but is nonetheless an unsettling peek into an alternative universe where private companies have even more of a say over our day-to-day lives. In the automaker's dystopian proposed a patent version of reality. A couple skipped car payments would trigger a cycle of in-car consequences, or a multi-step repossession procedure, as it is called in the document. First, an owner behind on their loan will get a notice of delinquency sent via their information system screen. If the driver fails to respond to that notice, there would be a second one. Then your Ford personal vehicle would slowly transfer into a version of hell. The company proposes varied early punishments for delinquent car owners. For instance, a vehicle that could disable its own air conditioning, automated key GPS, or music system. Another idea Ford floats in the patent filing is activating an audio component in the vehicle to emit an insistent and unpleasant sound every time the owner is present in the vehicle, which seems incredibly unsafe. I would agree. If the horrible noise and or minimized functionality and comfort doesn't entice a car owner to cough up the money, the repo process would then progress to locking a driver out of their vehicle. Ford notes that this lockout condition could be variably enforced, potentially allowing people to access their vehicles in medical emergencies via a complicated system of user monitoring, or still get back and forth to work by only restricting travel outside of certain zones or times. Jesus. Why, you might ask? Because Ford cares about getting its money. Allowing the user of the vehicle during weekdays avoids adversely affecting a livelihood of the owner of the vehicle and hampering the owner's ability to make payments, the company wrote. And still, if the lockout doesn't work, Ford has filed to patent tech that would allow its vehicles to self-repo. The company proposes versions of this idea that could work with both semi-autonomous and fully autonomous cars. In the former, the vehicle would move a short distance to be more easily towed away by a repo company. In the latter, the car would drive itself all the way back to the dealership it was purchased from or to a nearby impound lot or scrapyard, depending on the vehicle's value. The company also includes safeguards against owner defense. For example, locking the vehicle in a closed garage that would automatically notify the police. Jesus. So just to recap, in a possible future reality, a Ford car could lock you out, cut off your AC, produce terrible sounds, take itself to get junked for parts if you miss enough payments, and call the cops on you. Man, that's insane. That's just another reason why you should never finance a car through a dealership, because you have to adhere to the rules of the company if you take out a loan through them. Ford could put in their contract that they reserve the right to repossess your car for whatever they see fits. And you would probably be willing to sign that contract because Ford owns their own credit company. And they can offer you no money down, interest-free for a year, and an APR of 2%, depending on your credits. But I think the real reason Ford is gunning for this patent is not because they want to repossess your car. No, if you miss a couple payments, it is because what's coming in the future, which is the monetization of cars. These smart cars are allowing car companies to offer apps. You want to customize your RGB lighting, they got an app for that. Yeah, you want to control your car's performance, they got an app for that. You want your car to self-park, they got an app for that. All the manual functions that you have in your car, like defrost or seat adjustments, at some point are going to get put into a downloadable app because it's just going to be easier to do that. And then once we get used to downloadable apps, next come microtransactions. You want your car's RGB lighting to be set up like your favorite artist, $2.99. You want your windshield wipers to auto detect, $2.99. You want extra bass out of your subwoofer, $2.99. And then at some point when we get used to paying these microtransactions, next comes subscription fees. They're going to take all these functions that we are used to just downloading an app for and paying a microtransaction and putting them all in one app. That is a monthly subscription fee now. So if you want all those things, hey, $2.99 monthly for all these apps, for all these functions, and then once you get used to paying the subscription fee, next comes the subscription car. Yes, you can take out a loan for $40,000 and own that Subaru WRX STI for a monthly payment of $400 with interest, or you can have that same car in our subscription version. It comes with 4 different upgradable packages. I can see it coming, man. The subscription would be, like $50 a month, and it only lets you drive the car, period. And it gives you functions that aren't hazardous to anybody else on the road, but that's it, right? And then if you want more functions from within that car, you have, 4 upgradable packages to go through here. And probably the top one is $500 a month, but it gives you access to everything in the car. And if you can't make that monthly standard subscription fee for the car, which is $50 a month, the car just drives itself back to the dealership until you're able to pay the subscription. And all this is done within a 4-year fucking contract. I guarantee you that's what's coming. I guarantee it, man. I can see it already. And Ford wants this patent so that way when the subscription car does happen, other car companies have to pay Ford for that patent. So that way they can get their cars back if people don't pay their subscription fee. It's coming, man. It's coming. And I'll show you some stuff, right now, some headlines to kind of show you that what I'm saying isn't just bullshit. It's actually fucking happening. And let's take a look at some. BMW starts selling heated seat subscriptions for $18 a month. I told you it's coming, man. Mercedes wants to charge buyers a subscription to go faster. You know, they're trying to do what Tesla did, which is, I think if but you just pay them once, it's not a subscription. You just pay them once, and then they give you a code so that way your car goes faster. It's expensive. It's an expensive code, but you just pay once. They want to charge you a subscription fee. Insane. Insane. You will own nothing and be happy. Let's get into the big lead.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
No. I remember being called a conspiracy theorist for entertaining the possibility that COVID-19 came from a lab. You know, the COVIDians on Twitter would attack anyone who spoke out against the established narrative. This is why arguing with a conspiracy theorist rarely goes well. It gives the person advancing the theory to keep repeating it as just a hypothesis, as Cotton does here. Every time you ask him, he'll repeat it, say it's unlikely, and then say he's just asking questions. They would say that all the time, man. They talk like that. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You can't ask questions. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. That's why you're asking questions. And Tom Cotton is a senator who is adamantly pushing for investigations into the origin of COVID. So, going against the narrative. I remember my old channel getting, a misinformation strike from YouTube because we mentioned that doctors and scientists are starting to come out and say the lab leak theory might have some truth behind it. You know, I was pissed when we got there. I was like, we're not even saying that it happened. It's just like, we're just saying, hey, we're just showing you some tweets from some doctors. That's it. We're not saying that that it happened. And they're not even saying that it happened. They're just saying, hey, this kind of looks weird. You know? Now, I remember Dr. Anthony the Science Fauci saying back in 2020 in an article by National Geographic that there was no scientific evidence that the coronavirus was made in a Chinese lab. Fauci, no scientific evidence that the coronavirus is made in a Chinese lab. Tony Fauci has become the scientific face of America's COVID-19 response, and he says the best evidence shows the virus behind the pandemic was not made in a lab in China. Fauci, the director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, shot down this discussion that has been raging among politicians and pundits, calling it a circular argument, a conversation Monday with National Geographic. If you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now, the scientific evidence is very, very strongly leaning toward this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated. Everything about the stepwise evolution over time strongly indicates that this virus evolved in nature and then jumped species, Fauci says. Based on scientific evidence, he also doesn't entertain an alternative theory that someone found the coronavirus in the wild, brought it to a lab, and then accidentally escaped. Okay. Time always tells. And I think we've reached that point in the timeline where they can no longer deny the lab leak theory. Lab leak, most likely origin of COVID-19 pandemic. Energy Department now says. The U.S. Energy Department has concluded that the COVID pandemic most likely arose from a laboratory leak, according to a classified intelligence report recently provided to the White House and key members of Congress. The shift by the Energy Department, which previously was undecided on how the virus emerged, is noted in an update to the 2021 document by the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines' office. The new report highlights how different parts of the intelligence community have arrived at disparate judgments about the pandemic's origin. The Energy Department now joins the Federal Bureau of Investigation in saying that the virus likely spread via mishap at a Chinese laboratory. You know, I don't trust the FBI as far as I can throw them. You know, but I'll take a bone when I can get one. And the fact that they're saying that they think it's possible that it leaked from a lab is the move in the right direction. I think, you know? And what I find funny is there was so much evidence that pointed to a lab leak and people just ignored it. You know, the former CDC director came out on CNN this time last year and said he believed COVID came from a lab in China.
If I was to guess, this virus started transmitting somewhere in September, October in Wuhan.
September, October.
That's my own view. It's an only opinion. I'm allowed to have opinions. Now, you know, I am of the point of view that I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out. It's not unusual for respiratory pathogens that are being worked on in a laboratory to infect a laboratory worker.
Exactly. Exactly. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. It's a possibility that it happened that way, right? You know? But, of course, after that interview, you had people like Keith Olbermann come out and call him a quack. We are allowed to have opinions. Among Redfield's previous opinions were that a useless vaccine for AIDS was accurately a cure, and that he could just make up data about the disease and publish it. My opinion, Robert Redfield is a quack. CNN should not give him a platform. Fucking Keith Olbermann. Fuck Christ, dude. Yes, Keith. No, dismiss everything he said because his HIV vaccine didn't work out. Yeah, that's the way to do it, bud. Fucking, I hate him so much. Oh, no. But there was also something that came out that pointed towards this might be a lab leak. That was the Fauci emails that were released under the Freedom of Information Act. No, which showed that Fauci was aware that this might have started from a lab and it might have been engineered. So this is a report from the Congressional Oversight Committee requesting an interview with Fauci so he could explain why there were emails that date back to January of 2020, warning him that COVID had leaked from Wuhan, possibly in a lab, and that the virus could have been genetically mutated. So let's kind of read a couple paragraphs out of this here. So we write to request a transcribed interview of Dr. Anthony Fauci, Director, U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. Excerpts of emails we are making public today reveal that Dr. Fauci was warned of two things. One, the potential that COVID-19 leaked from the Wuhan Institute Virology, WIV. And two, the possibility that the virus was intentionally genetically manipulated. It is imperative we investigate if this information was conveyed to the rest of the government and whether this information would have changed the U.S. response to the pandemic. Scroll down here a little bit. By January 27, 2020, Dr. Fauci knew NIAID had funded EcoHealth, The WIV was a sub-guarantee of EcoHealth, and EcoHealth was not in compliance with its grant reporting. In particular, a grant that the NIAID knew had gain-of-function potential and novel bat coronavirus. It is unclear if Dr. Fauci reported any of these issues to his superiors. We need to know the entirety of what Dr. Fauci knew and when he knew it. On February 1st, 2020, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Collins, and at least 11 other scientists convened a conference call to discuss COVID-19. It was on this conference call with Drs. Fauci and Collins were first warned that COVID-19 may have leaked from the WIV and, further, may have been intentionally genetically manipulated. Again, it is unclear if either Dr. Fauci or Dr. Collins even passed these warnings along to the government officials or if they simply ignored them. Only 3 days later, on February 4, 2020, 4 participants of the conference call authored a paper entitled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2 and sent a draft to Dr. Fauci and Collins. Why? Prior to final publication in Nature Medicine, the paper was sent to Dr. Fauci for editing and approval. It is unclear what, if any, new evidence was presented or if the underlying science changed in that short period of time. But after speaking with Drs. Fauci and Collins, the authors abandoned their belief COVID-19 was the result of a laboratory leak. It is also unclear if Drs. Fauci or Collins edited the paper prior to publication. Of course, they did. On April 16th, 2020, more than 2 months after the original conference call, Dr. Collins emailed Dr. Fauci expressing dismay that Nature Medicine article, which they saw prior to publication and were given the opportunity to edit, did not squash the lab leak hypothesis and asks if the NIH can do more to put down the lab leak hypothesis. The next day, after Dr. Collins explicitly asked for more public pressure, Dr. Fauci cited the Nature Medicine paper from the White House podium, likely in an effort to further stifle the hypothesis COVID-19 leaked from the WIV. So he cited at a conference to kind of, further say, hey, these are all conspiracy theorists, a paper that he possibly edited. He did edit it. Let's be real here. Let's be real here. No, and those emails that they're citing from were released back in 2021. Now, nobody wanted to talk about them. Now, Rand Paul questioned Fauci about these emails, and the media brushed it off like Rand Paul was a right-wing conspiracy nut.
With him. In an email exchange with Dr. Collins, you conspire, and I quote here directly from the email, to create a quick and devastating published takedown of 3 prominent epidemiologists from Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford. Apparently, there's a lot of fringe epidemiologists at Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford. And you quote in the email that they, or from Dr. Collins, and you agree that they are fringe. And immediately there's this takedown effort. A published takedown, though, doesn't exactly conjure up the image of a dispassionate scientist. Instead of engaging them on the merits, you and Dr. Collins sought to smear them as fringe and take them down. And not in journals, in lay press. This is not only antithetical to the scientific method, it's the epitome of cheap politics, and it's reprehensible, Dr. Fauci. Do you really think it's appropriate to use your $420,000 salary to attack scientists that disagree with you?
The email you're referring to was an email of Dr. Collins to me. If you look at the email
that you responded to and hurried up and said, I can do it. We got something in Wired magazine.
No. I think in usual fashion,
Nature magazine, buddy.
Senator, you are distorting everything about me.
Did you
First
ever
of all-
object to Dr. Collins' characterization of them as fringe? Did you write back to Dr. Collins and say, no, they're not fringe, they're esteemed
It's all there in
scientists.
the
It would
emails,
be
too.
beneath me
That he's
to do
lying.
that. You responded
He
to him
has
that
the
you would
emails
do
in
it.
his hand.
And you immediately got an article in Wired and you sent it back to him and said, hey, look, I've got him. I nailed him in Wired of all scientific
That's not
publications."
Nature.
You
There
did.
you go again.
Medicine.
That was
Just
your
whatever,
the
it's
response.
same
okay.
thing every year.
That was your response. And
So-
this wasn't the only time. So your desire to take
You're
down
absolutely
people.
incorrect. As usual, Senator, you are incorrect almost everything you
Well,
say.
no, you deny.
I love
you
their
deny
fucking
that the emails tell the
bickering,
truth of
dude.
this.
No.
It's
This
fucking.
wasn't the
it's,
only time.
It's
Your desire to
entertaining.
take down those who disagree with you didn't stop with Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford. You conspired with Peter Daszak, who you communicated with privately, and other members of the scientific community that wrote opinion pieces for Nature. 5 of them signed a paper for Nature, an opinion piece. 17 signed a paper that called it conspiracy theory, the idea that the virus could have originated in the lab. Do you think words like conspiracy theory should be in a scientific paper?
Senator, I never used that word when I was referring to it. You're distorting virtually everything.
Did
No,
you
he's not.
communicate
He
with
has
the
the
5
fucking
scientists
emails
who wrote
right
the
there in his
opinion piece
hand,
in
dude.
Nature, where they were describing, oh, there's no way this could have come
That
from
was
the lab?
not me. What I
Did you talk with any of those scientists
but
privately?
you keep distorting the truth. It is
Did
stunning how
you
you
talk to any of the scientists privately
Yes.
who wrote the opinion? You did.
Well-
What were they telling you privately?
Well, let me explain. You know, you're going back to that original discussion when I brought together a group of people to look at every possibility with an open mind. So
Yeah,
not
but
only
before
you
that,
distorting
you
it,
were fucking.
you're
You knew
completely
that this
turning
might
it
have
around.
happened in the
Most
fucking
of the
Wuhan,
scientists
man.
that came to
I
you
hate him so
privately,
much.
did they
There's
come to you
emails
privately
that
and say,
show
no way
this.
this came from the lab? Or was their initial impression, Dr. Gary and others that were involved, was their initial impression actually that it looked very suspicious for a virus
know,
that came from a lab?
Senator, we are here at a committee to look at a virus now that has killed almost 900,000 people. And the purpose of the committee was to try and get things out, how we can help to get the American public. And you keep coming back to personal attacks on me that have absolutely no relevance to reality.
Do you think anybody
Okay,
has had...
we can keep on watching that. I love it, but time's sake here. Fauci the victim. That's what he's doing, man. He's victimizing himself, and that's what he ends up doing towards the end of that clip. Is he just victimizes himself? He answers nothing about the emails, and just like tells Senator Paul that he's just spreading lies, which he's not. He's fucking citing straight from the fucking emails, and they have emails that what we got were redacted. They don't have the redacted emails. They have the full fucking emails there. At that time, we got the unredacted emails now because what Congress is doing right now. But that Fauci, basically in the rest of that interview, he makes a scapegoat of himself and says these allegations are leading to his possible harm and the harm of his family. And that's why you shouldn't believe Senator Paul. Not because he has actual shit there, it's because he's harming me. He's harming the science. I'm the science. Fucking, oh man, dude. And the media, seeing a narrative painted right before them, no, they just run with it, fully knowing that these emails Rand Paul is citing from exist. Fauci fires back at Rand Paul, accusing him of using attacks for political gain. And that was written by the Washington Post. TPM. Fauci scolds Paul again as KY senator pushes COVID origin conspiracy theory. CNN. Fauci exposes Rand Paul's true motivations. Slate. The Fauci boogeyman. Republican candidates are increasingly endorsing a conspiracy theory that links the public health officials to an ominous history with COVID-19. NPR. Dr. Fauci says GOP Senator Paul's false accusations have sparked death threats. The victim. What a moron. From Vanity Fair. Anthony Fauci lets it rip on the entire country's behalf. Okay. It's insane, man. The propaganda train. That's what that was. The propaganda train. Now, and with all that evidence out there at that time, people still think the lab leak conspiracy is a conspiracy and that Anthony the Science Fauci is the God King that saved America from a disaster that could have been worse. Even though the evidence is starting to show that Fauci exacerbated this situation. Now, and if you're like me and you're feeling optimistic about the government, finally coming forward and confirming the lab leak theory, and that we will finally get to the bottom of the origins of COVID, don't hold your breath, because they're already trying to debunk those entities. Lab leak. Intelligence reports aren't scientific conclusions. Intelligence reports supporting the lab leak theory for COVID are not based in science. Don't question the religion of science. And that ends the big lead.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The Last of Us is a game I hold near and dear to my heart. It was a revolutionary game made by Naughty Dog. The gameplay was great and the storyline was amazing, which is why it got adopted into a live-action drama for HBO. Some fans of the game are not happy about the direction HBO has taken with the storyline. The actors are blaming homophobia for the backlash, but I don't think that's the case. So let's talk about it in a segment called What's the Pop in Pop Culture. So, Variety did an interview with Storm Reed and Bella Ramsey about their episode, which is basically the origin story of Ellie in the game. No, it was DLC. But let's take a look at what they wrote. The Last of Us. Storm Reed and Bella Ramsey talked through their heartbreaking episode and clapped back at homophobic trolls. Ellie takes a devastating walk down memory lane in episode 7 of The Last of Us, recalling one of her most painful moments as she frantically attempts to save an injured Joel's life in the present day. The episode, named after the Left Behind downloadable expansion pack from the 2013 video game, reveals what happened on the night Ellie discovered she was immune to infection. The rebellious runaway, Riley, Storm Reed, brings Ellie, Bella Ramsey, on an adventure through an abandoned mall, soaking up the wonders of Mortal Kombat arcade game and a merry-go-round and a photo booth. Just as Ellie finally reveals her romantic feelings for Riley with a kiss and convinces her to stay, things take a gut-wrenching turn. Both teens are bitten by an infected. So we're going to skip some of this stuff down here, just kind of get to what we're here for. Bella, you've previously spoken about the homophobic backlash to the show and why you're not letting it scare you. Storm, what's your take on this topic, especially knowing that there will likely be a response to this particular episode? Reed, I think Bella put it perfectly a couple of weeks ago. If you don't like it, don't watch it. There's so many other things to worry about in the world. I think being concerned about who people love is just absurd to me. I will never understand it. I don't get it. I think despite what people are going to say, if you don't like it, I think there are going to be a lot more people that appreciate it. A lot more people that feel represented and seen and heard. So that's what matters. That's where the work comes in. And that's when it is appreciated. And you prioritize looking at those tweets rather than the ones that aren't the best. Okay. Anyone who is the fan of the game Last of Us, I guarantee you are not upset with the characters. Homosexual characters are not new to HBO. HBO has some type of, homosexual character or couple. It's almost like it's a requirement at this point. So your standard HBO goer is probably not going to be offended by the homosexual character. So then why are they complaining about homophobic backlash? Well, the reason I think is because the people who are complaining are fans of the game. And what they're complaining about is not the homosexual characters, but more or less the focus on the gay relationships of these characters. You know, none of that was part of the main storyline of the game. No, it was a subplot. Ellie's origin story that they did in episode 7, you know, was DLC for the game that came out a year after the debut. You know, it was only like an hour long. You know, it was just extra content. You know, when playing the Left Behind DLC, there's no hint that Ellie might like her friend, you know, more than a friend. You know, you kind of get a sense of camaraderie between the two girls who are trying to picture what life is like before the infection. You know, and when Ellie kisses Riley, it's a surprise. You're just like, whoa, I wasn't seeing that coming. You know, and then you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess Ellie likes girls. I guess that kind of makes sense. You know, that's it. No, but I don't think the DLC deserves a whole episode. You know, and I don't think it needs to be put within the first 10 episodes. You know, because it's not something that advances the story, nor is it something that makes you fall in love with the character. No. What it feels like to me is the writers are pushing ideological bullshit. That's what it feels like to me. You know, and I have the same opinion about them dedicating a whole episode to Bill. No, Bill was not important enough to get an origin story. No, he was more of a punchline in the game. No, like when you meet Bill, he is this I don't take shit from no one kind of dude. He's kind of an asshole. You know, he complains about his partner being a freeloader and disappearing. But in the way he acts, you don't kind of get the hint that his partner's his partner. You're just kind of like, okay, well, it's just some dude that, you know, they kind of take care of each other, you know, and he obviously doesn't pull his weight, so he's a piece of shit. No, and you kind of learn that his partner's his partner when you find the dude that he's talking about, you know, hung with the suicide notes. And the suicide note basically says he hates Bill's guts and he would rather be dead than live another day with Bill. Because Bill's a fucking asshole. You know, that's what you get throughout this whole interaction with Bill, is that he's just a fucking asshole. You know? But at that point, when you find that letter, you know, you really don't know if like Bill's gay or not. You kind of have a suspicion at that point. And it's not till the cutscene when you're leaving Bill's town that Ellie pulls out a magazine she stole from Bill's place that is a male porn magazine, you know, and then both Ellie and Joel have a laugh about it. And that's when you learn that, oh, they were a couple. And Bill was so much of an asshole that the love that was there is gone, and the guy would rather kill himself than live another day with Bill. You know, you don't need to humanize Bill. Bill was a fucking asshole, and that's all he needed to stay. And that's all you need to know about him. You know? Fans are lashing out at the HBO series not because of the homosexual characters, but because they are bastardizing the story. They are using it to push LGBTQ ideology, which the story has nothing to do with. You know? The story is a redemption story. You know, Joel walks through life as half the man he once was because he couldn't protect the one thing he loved, which is his daughter. You know, and then he finds meaning in life again because of Ellie, a girl who's the same age as his daughter when she died. He gets offered a second chance and he takes it. And that's what makes the story so fucking beautiful and touching. It is. That's the main cusp of it. And that's what makes it so great. You know, it's a fucking journey. It's a journey of both each other finding, you know, what's you know, making them want to stay alive and progress through life. You know, and I have to say that's why people are mad. Because the writers are trying to turn it into something it's not. You know? And then you have these actors that feel some sense of saviorism because they're pushing back against the bigots. No, get off your fucking cross. Jesus. And that was What's the Pop in pop culture. That ends the show, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please hit the like button and definitely subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure to ring that bell. I upload episodes weekly and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Audio listeners, you can subscribe too. Thank you for listening. But hey, you'll want to watch the videos we played. You can watch the Deplorable Talk Show on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. You can listen to the Deplorable Talk Show on Spotify, Apple, and Google. Oh, plus Stitcher. I always forget about that one. You can find links in the description below, or you can head to the deplorableent.com. That's the general hub for all things deplorable. Take care, guys. See you next episode.